Well, good evening, folks. My apologies for the delayed start. Unfortunately, as you can certainly appreciate, um, life gets in the way sometimes. So currently, I'm on call, and the gentleman that usually helps me when these Mondays come around, unfortunately, took a much deserved vacation. So we are winging it, and we are gambling. Hopefully, the pager doesn't go off. It actually just went off prior to us going live, so fingers crossed it does not go off again. But needless to say, if it does, I know Jay and Lawrence will be there to step in a moment's notice. Speaking of which, of course, Jay is backstage. Looking forward to speaking to him. We've got a lot of really cool topics, so I want you guys, if you want to be entertained, tonight's one of those shows. I'm just waiting for Big Jim to show up, so I'm hoping nothing serious is wrong, but it's not like him to be late. So either he's taking a nap, he's in the middle of supper, but needless to say, we'll give him a call later on in hopes that we can get him up and get him ready. Steve is already ready backstage. Thanks, Steve, for that. Richard as well. Steven, nice to see you. Brad, that was an awesome photo. You and the boys, fantastic to see. Can't thank you enough for that kind of support, but truly appreciate it. Tony's in the house. How you doing, Tony? Marco, how you doing, Marco? Watching from Cuba. Wow. I mean, ask if there's a Chris Church running around. If there's a Chris Church running around, he's actually down in Cuba as well. So if you bump into him, he's a guy that looks very similar to me, just with red hair. So if he's down there, tell him we'll make do without him. Nice to see you too, Lloyd. Always a pleasure, my friend. It's not a typical Monday if we don't see you. Fernando's in the house. How you doing, my friend? I'm hoping that you've been out. I haven't seen any photos or videos, but I'm hoping you've been out ice fishing. Joe Vitani's in the house. How you doing? Shane Richard, he was out. I don't think he wants to talk about it, but it was fun. It looked like a great day out on the water, Shane. Maybe not the most productive of days, but needless to say, any day out in the water is a good day, good or bad. It's certainly better than heading to work. Chuck's in the house. How you doing, Chuck? Nice to see you. Happy hard water season. Absolutely. Dean's in the house. Nice to see you, Dean. Jeremy's here as well. We got the Penners. Mark, nice to see you. Nice to have you. The entire Penner. Look at this. The entire Penner lineup is here. We got Mark, Jeff, and Grimsby Tackle. John's in the house as well. Nice to see you, John. As I said, always a pleasure to have you folks take some time every Monday to support what we're doing. Of course, we are going to be celebrating all year long. This is our 10th anniversary. CFN has been in existence, I think, a little bit more than 10 years, but 10 years as far back as we have records of. So needless to say, we are going to be celebrating our 10th year in a very big way. There's lots going on. We have an announcement. We do have some things that we have to discuss with our legacy members. So I don't want to make an announcement just yet, but stay tuned because it's really cool and you're going to want to hear. Of course, in the meantime, if you love us, you want to wear us, represent. You've got Richard Dunlop doing some wondrous things with these beautiful hoodies and, of course, these wonderful hats. Reach out to Richard Dunlop. He will take your order and make sure that is expedited in a speedy fashion. But for those who have bought, like Brad and the lads, tip of the hat. Thank you so much. As I said, it means the world to see our colors represented by good people. And Brad, you were definitely one of those. We have some announcements just to come up. Of course, I'll do it basically on in terms of closest to farthest away. And closest to right now, of course, is the Niagara Fishing Tackle Swap. That's going to be January 25th. So I believe next weekend. That's not too far away. Holy smokes. And the one and only, of course, Jay Barnucz is going to be presenting, and we look forward to that. Hopefully, we're going to be able to get down there, show some support to that event, because that event it's usually always sold out and very well represented. So to the folks down there, we're looking forward to seeing you at the Tackle Swap. Of course, if you are looking for a pike derby, you want to win some money, February 22nd. Up in Matagami, get a hold of MFN Fishing. There is the QR code if you want to know more and get yourself signed up. Some great prizes to be had. So by all means, reach out to Christelle, reach out to Jess, and they will certainly point you in the right direction. But there's the QR code for you to get signed up. This is a bit of a call to order. So for those who have been watching, you know all too well that in February, we are going to be having the first of 3 shows. That is the Made in Canada Tackle Marketplace and Platform. We're looking forward to having a lot of you folks show up, but now it's more of a call to order. At the end of the day, this is more than just a show. This is to show support for the Canadian tackle producers. There are so many that span from coast to coast and all the way up to the Arctic. But if you truly, and I mean this when I say this, if you truly want to support the Made in Canada Tackle Platform, we'd love to see you out here. February 9th, we're going to be in Chatham. And as I said, right now, we have some great vendors, fantastic vendors. There are still spots available. I don't want to lead people astray. There are still spots available. We are trying to fill the building, and we'd love to do so with the Made in Canada tackle producers, but also if there's special interest groups, we'd love to hear from you as well. But I hate to say this, but you know what? We always talk a good game about, support local, buy Canadian, made in Canada. We say it, now we need to do it. And if you truly want to support the Canadian tackle industry, I expect to see you there. You don't have to be at all 3 shows, but I'd love to see you at least at 1. If you do have a product that you would like to get some promotion and do some great networking, this is a great opportunity to do this. Of course, we have not been in these areas before, so these are brand new to us. Typically, we started this in Woodstock. We have now, unfortunately, moved away from Woodstock for reasons I don't even want to discuss. But needless to say, these 3 venues that we have managed to lock down, I think are going to be fantastic, not only for the vendors, but of course those who join us, the spectators that attend. You will be properly entertained. I will say it will be quite a show, quite a venue. And as I said, if you support Made in Canada, we'll see you there. Big Jim, I was hoping he was going to be coming on. I don't see him in the lobby just yet, but I do want to bring to your attention some brand new announcements when it comes to Shimano. There are some fantastic reels that have been unveiled by Shimano. We were hoping to be talking to Jim about these. Some of them are saltwater, like the Stella. This is more for saltwater anglers, but it certainly does have its purpose, when it comes to a freshwater application as well. But there are some serious reels that are going to be unveiled and have been unveiled that Jim will talk about. I'm hoping either later today or next week, depending on where he's at. I'm not 100% sure where he is. I'm just hoping he's okay. But as I said, if you are a Shimano lover, this is your time. You love seeing this stuff. You love seeing the new stuff. And I will say they have certainly touched on some big hitters. They've talked about the Twin Pro. You've got the Stella. There's a few other rods. There's the Twin Power, the Altegra. Yeah, that's another reel that they've stepped up in a huge way. But some modifications, and they have done it all for the sake of improving your experience on the water. And Shimano certainly has gone above and beyond to make sure that is, in fact, what you experience. Because who wants to go out and have terminal tackle that doesn't work? Who wants to go out and have a rod break on them or a reel not work properly, especially when you spend a bit of money on it? We will certainly unveil some of the new stuff when Jim arrives. But yeah, absolutely. There's lots to talk about. How we doing? Scott, nice to see you. Heather's in the house. Always a pleasure to see you. There's the link Jay is offering for the Niagara Fishing and Tackle Swap. So as I said, if you are interested in joining us, we will hopefully see you there and support our good buddy Jay Barnucz. And if you want to learn more about Shimano's new products, please head on over there to the link that Steve has provided, or go on YouTube and just search Shimano North American Fishing, and it will pop up automatically, and you'll see the whole, like all the videos basically that I've downloaded to get ready for Jim. You will see a lot of great stuff. One thing I do want to remind you though is, of course, it is ice fishing season, and if you are like me and you love your ice fishing gear, and especially the stuff from Shimano, again, this is about a 6-year-old video, but it pertains to 2 entry-level rods. The Convergence it's a little bit more high-end, but the Sienna combo, perfect for those that are looking for an entry-level ice fishing combo that you're not going to have to worry about. Sienna has a great name in this industry, and Shimano has done a great job branding that and basically just making something that anglers truly can afford but can appreciate at the same time. And as I said, Sienna might be considered an entry-level product, but the components that it has in it, it's very similar to that of the high end. And I want to thank Shimano for not only supporting CFN, but supporting a lot of the initiatives that we're going to be undertaking this year in 2025. And of course, what they've done in the past, we can't forget that, because at the end of the day, it is our 10th year, and there's a reason we've got this far, and Shimano is a huge reason for that. So again, if you buy Shimano, you're not just supporting Shimano, but you're supporting CFN, and we truly appreciate that. And with these 2, the Convergent, you can't go wrong. That is a higher end ice fishing rod. They're definitely a lot longer. I have one myself. Absolutely love that rod. But the Sienna is a great combo as well. So again, if you're looking for an entry level hard water combo setup, what have you, you're not going to go wrong with a Sienna. You really aren't. And I would have to say there's probably more of them on the shelf right now than some of the higher end stuff. So if you're desperate, reach out and find out if they've got a Sienna combo for you. Because again, they do wonderful things. I still don't see Jim here just yet. So with that, I want to play something that's, before we bring in Lawrence, I want to play something that it's kind of interesting. Yes, it is winter. Yes, it is hard water season. But I came across something on the weekend that I thought was truly awesome. For those who have a boat, for those of you that have been to ramps and have seen things go awry, things not work out perfectly, or perhaps you've got that one guy that's jackknifing a trailer, we have a means of perhaps, supporting them. This is a rogue idea, but I like the concept of this. And as much as it is, to poke a little bit of fun on those who are involved, it's also there to support them. And as I said, watch the video. It's not in its entirety, but Lawrence will be coming up next. In the meantime, have a look at this. It's a lot of fun. I would have loved to have been a part of it.
This is gonna go crazy.
You think so?
This is gonna go crazy.
These cars driving away right now are so happy. They are so happy that they got it out before us. We're just here to support people, and if they're bad, we're here to tell them to get better.
We're just encouraging improvement.
Some people love it, some people hate it. You're gonna have that with any kind of sporting event. Tells me a bad backer upper's coming though.
Oh man, this is ugly. Encourage them, guys. You got this. Watch out! This guy's going wrong. You're in the cabbage. This is the worst one of the day.
This is not looking good for this guy. Of course, he's driving a Ram. but a solid finish. Great job! Great job! Great job! Great day, brings the family together.
A bunch of people that didn't even come with us are starting to enjoy the show. Even the sheriff's department came to hang out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't know they were in the boat ramp watching, but they're here. Oh, you gotta reset. That's strike one. That's strike two.
How do you feel your wife's gonna do parking the pontoon?
How many people are here?
I gotta back up a little. No, you're good.
Hey, quiet. She's backing.
I'm going down. I'm trying to move it as fast. Remember, it's okay.
Love you guys. All right. Perfect.
Oh boy. Oh man. When I saw that on the weekend, oh man, I just absolutely howled. Absolutely howled. I thought it was absolutely hilarious that these guys did this. But a big tip of the hat, because not only did it become a session that, folks sort of saw their flaws, but they also probably learned from it. And I will say, not just myself, but they themselves too were probably entertained as heck. But yeah, love that little segment. But yeah, I can't say enough about it. I just laughed hysterically. I thought it was so awesome. Well, Lawrence, how you doing tonight, my friend?
Oh man, no pressure there, right? Can you imagine showing up with that sort of fan club there watching and waiting for
it. Exactly, right? This is just it. Like, can you imagine all of a sudden the entire ramp is just like shoulder to shoulder fans cheering with all kinds of clappers and noisemakers, and what a sideshow. I love it though. I thought we might want to do that. Maybe CFN could, but who knows? We'd start a riot, I'm sure. So it's probably best that we don't.
It's stressful enough at the ramp, Never mind, knowing that you got all these people watching and laughing and cheering and shouting. Oh my god!
Oh, I tell you, it is good times. Lawrence, great to have you with us as always. It's not often that you go first, so this is an honor. This is different. I'd love to have you in this position. As I said, we're still waiting for Jim. I'm not 100% sure where he is, but let's just hope that all is okay. In the
Don't
meantime,
worry about Jim. I took care of Jim. He's fine.
Yeah, he might just be taking a nap. Who knows? But at the end of the day, we miss him just the same.
Yeah.
But if he joins us a little bit later, we still have lots to talk about. Speaking of lots to talk about, Lawrence, I went through the latest newsletter from Bluefish Canada.
Yeah.
Very, very thorough. I love how, again, I've never really taken the time to go through each of your items and articles, but the links that you have within the newsletter, just spot on. There's nothing that when you leave an article that you have published, wanting to know more, because you've had it. It's all there. It's all within the article. So a big tip of the hat. Shout out to you for that newsletter that you keep putting out.
Thanks, buddy. It's a labor of love, man. It's a labor of love. I took a little break over the fall because we were just so busy with everything. I was gone offline 4 days every week for the last 6 months. So, but back at it now. Back at it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One particular article, and I know we talked about it last week, but we didn't necessarily go into the details. But when you start to read it a little bit more in detail, there's some things that really jumped out at me. And I think one of the reasons I want to talk about it is because not only, even though this article was written about salmon, this pertains to a lot of other fish as well. And basically what's happened is the UBC's report came up with 15 recommendations to improve catch and release methods. Now, we've talked about, bear trauma, We've talked about, perhaps maybe looking at getting, I don't want to say getting away from catch and release, but perhaps it's not it's not the greatest thing since sliced bread. Part of the reason might be because of the weather. It might have something to do with the angler, and of course, perhaps maybe the fish has just stressed a little bit too much. But these 15 recommendations, I'd like to go through them in detail with you, simply because I would like folks to not only listen to it from a salmon perspective, but any kind of fish for that matter.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of it can be applied to a lot of midsummer fishing, right? When you're catching fish that prefer colder temperatures, and then you're bringing them up to the surface. Anyone who swims in lakes knows that you have that warm thermal layer at the surface, and then you dip down with your toes and get down 6-8 feet, and you say, oh my God, it's cold down there, right? Yeah. So this is what the fish are experiencing. Can you imagine coming up 20 feet down or 25 feet down and then coming up to the surface into 85-degree temperature water? That's it's quite a change for them. So, hats off to these researchers for the science that went in to support the 15 recommendations they've made. That's a considerable amount of science. And this is science-based. This is not just, some animal rights, advocates, trying to make fishing miserable for everybody. This is science-based stuff.
Yeah. Well, we'll start talking about all 15. We'll start with using smaller hook sizes. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm of the belief that, and when I think smaller hooks, I'm thinking dead sticking and live bait. And the only thing that I cringe at with those small hooks is they're easily swallowed by a fish. So unless you're there to actually set the hook, using a small hook is something that I would want to steer a little bit away from, simply because I don't want it to get into the vital organs of the fish. Yeah. But in this case, smaller hooks, larger hooks are related to more severe injuries, and larger gaps, widths. Basically, you increase a greater gap width with that larger hook, so there's more damage to the fish. Any other things that you'd like to mention when it comes to using smaller hooks?
Well, we're talking about salmon fishing, so we're going after those big king salmon, right? That's the prize on the West Coast, so that's what they're talking about. So they're looking at hooks just below a 3/0, a 3/0 size, and a 15 millimeter gap. So that's almost a 1/2 inch gap. They're saying don't go beyond that, and a little bit less than that is preferable. So I'm thinking, wow, are people fishing for salmon with 5/0 and 6/0 hooks? And I'm guessing what happens here. And I didn't read the study on this one, but if you're getting into a gap of a 3/4 inch or 1 inch gap, and that hook turns in the mouth, it can get really deeply, it can penetrate quite deep into the head of the fish, right? So, causing more damage, more bigger barbs, bigger hooks, bigger barbs, bigger holes, bigger damage. By keeping the gap smaller, usually means a thinner gauge wire hook, a smaller barb, and less chance that hook can, other than just come out the corner of the mouth, it's not going to go deep into parts of the fish where you don't want a hook penetrating. You know what I mean? So it makes sense. It makes sense. We're not talking. I hear what you're saying. Like when I read that, I said, "Oh, what are they talking about? We should all be using size 8 hooks or size 6 hooks in these big salmon. Those things are just going to get inhaled down the throat." But that's not what they're talking about. It's very precise.
So when it comes to salmon, I will adhere to their recommendations. Mm-hmm. To use smaller hooks if I'm going out for salmon. What I would like to say, to generalize this for all anglers, be conscious of the size of hook you're using. Make sure that it pertains to the presentation that you're using. A case in point, like I mentioned, if you're dead sticking, yes, a smaller hook would be great because it's disguised by the live bait, but also it can do some serious damage if, in fact, it is inhaled. And the smaller the hook, the easier it is to swallow. So be mindful of the presentation you're using, the style of fishing that you're presenting, and make sure that you're using the appropriate hook. Does that make more sense?
For sure. And appropriate, like you don't want to lose the fish. Like I had a friend of mine, he showed me a treble hook that was cranked around. It was a 9/0 treble hook. He had a 50+ inch St. Lawrence River muskie on the line, and it literally bent out the hook and got away. 2 barbs. It was double hooked on 2 of the points of the 3 points, and both of those hooks were bent out. Can you imagine? Like, that's a 9/0 heavy duty, top quality hook, bent out like as if a child was playing with a twist tie. Just absolutely the power that fish executed to bend out that hooks it makes you almost shake in your boots and think, oh my God, I don't want to run into that fish in a dark alley somewhere. You know what I mean? And
of course you talk about the damage to the fish, and of course the more hooks you have, the more damage you're going to do to those fish. But
that's another point. That's, I think, then it might be the next point, right?
It actually is to avoid treble hooks altogether. Now, of course, the salmon, they're very much like trout in the sense that the minute they're pricked, they bleed like a stuck pig. So the less hooks you have in it, the less blood you're going to have on yourself and the boat. But I will say for trebles, those who know me and my style of fishing when it comes to walleye, trebles are not something I typically use. I try to steer clear away from those, just because for that sake, it does do a lot of damage. Now, if you're trolling, you're on a charter, it might be a little bit different because, of course, you're paying to bring a fish to the boat, so you want to better your chances. But I think if we can do a conscious effort to try and avoid the number of trebles on a crankbait or especially a bait that has multiple trebles, that might be the best suggestion. What do you think?
I've asked this about muskie guys. I said, why all the trebles? They said, Lawrence, it's 10,000 casts. You got one chance. It's not like we're fishing schools of muskie. And I hear that, but then you go up north and, where the big lake trout and the big northern pike are, and then up in the Northwest Territories, and you can't use trebles. It's law that you have to use single hooks, and a lot of times you have to use single barbless hooks. But there you're looking at a lot more fish. So if you lose 1 or 2 by the side of the boat, just go catch another one. So I totally get you, though. People who fish for large trout, the streamers might be a number 4 hook, right? A single hook. You're not putting big trebles on flies people who fly fish for large trout, So, and salmon, you're out there in the ocean. It's not like you have to horse these fish out from behind the weed pads or around behind a stump, and you're so they don't tangle you up. But even fishing carp, 40, 50 pound carp in the St. Lawrence River, we're using number 6 and number 8 hooks, right? Yeah. Maybe the biggest is a number 2 hook. They're all single hooks. They're all singles. So why go treble if you don't really need to? If it's not a fish at 10,000 casts, why go treble? Just because you want to make sure? But maybe it's your need to catch every fish and not lose any of them is causing more damage to those fish that are they're going back, right? The whole idea here is that you're harvesting marked fish, hatchery fish that are marked with the fin clip, and then the ones that aren't fin clipped, you're assuming are wild, and you want to let them go. So if you want to let the wild ones go to make sure they successfully spawn, make sure they go back healthy, right? Everything we can do to make sure that happens.
Yeah. No, I agree. The less damage we do to a fish, the better off the fish is when it is released. No doubt about that. Now, the next one is avoid tandem hook point setups. So I'm going to assume trailer hooks is what they're getting at with that.
I'm thinking so. I don't think anyone's fishing crankbaits with 3 trebles. I think you're right. Stinger hooks, things like that. Or these flies, I got some in my tackle box that I bought off a guy years ago, where you have 5 or 6 salmon flies on a line, right? And you think, wow, that's an interesting salmon rig. And you think, well, if it rolls on that, there's a lot of hooks outside the fish's mouth that are just swinging around, right? Just swinging around, causing mayhem.
Yeah. And Steve brings up a good point. There's some charter captains, I'm sure, out there that would completely disagree with what we're saying. And for those situations, I don't have an answer to that because they have paid clients, and there's an expectation to catch fish. And for those paid clients, I would not want to suggest something that's not going to increase their hookup rate. In fact, it could potentially decrease their hookup rate. So again, we're doing this from a recreational standpoint simply because there are some important points in here that perhaps maybe we haven't even thought of. But for the sake of the health of the fish, when it comes to catch and release, we want to better the chances. So some of these suggestions and recommendations, I think we should listen to.
And then for sure, these guides, I mean, these outfitters, Scottie, you're right. They, you know, they have to compete with the competition, right? And if you're running single barbless hooks and everyone else is running treble barbed hooks and they're bringing home 4 times the amount of fish you're bringing home, you know, no one's going to go with you, right? They're going to go with your competition. That's the fear. That's the fear is you got to compete with the competition. You can't afford to, you know, be the one who's going to reduce the chances. But if that's the case, you gotta make it the same for everybody. And that's what you see down in Florida with the tarpon. You know, they have very strict rules on how you handle tarpon. The same thing on the Fraser River with the sturgeon. There's rules. There's rules on how you can handle these fish and so on. And then everyone's playing with the same rules.
Agreed. The next one pertains strictly to salmon. They're suggesting that you avoid flashers. Inline flashers cause higher metabolic rates during landing and prolong the metabolic recovery of the fight after release. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I didn't know about that either. But you think about the size of these flashers. They're giant, giant spoons, the size of the bottom of your foot often. And you think, okay, this is really maybe like a ball and chain, right? Now you're tying a fish that's used to going fast through water. And not only is it pulling on your line and trying to get away, but even if it's swimming towards you or swimming, you know, off to your left or you're off to your right or down or up, it's hauling that flasher around. So it never gets a break. It never gets a break, and it wants to go fast, and it's got this flasher right behind it wobbling. It thinks, you know, it's got this thing chasing it maybe, so it's trying extra hard to shake it, right? And it's just swimming out of fear, you know, just out of pure fear. And no wonder, they're coming back trouble, you know, extra exhausted.
I didn't think it would increase the metabolic rate, but apparently it does. And I try to somehow envision it as someone teasing me with a big porterhouse steak. But before I'm allowed to eat it, you got to go run. Go run 5 miles
with a ball and chain attached to your leg. You know what? If we can somehow visualize it that way, then I understand the whole flasher recommendation. Yeah.
Okay. Now this pertains to all fish, and I think this is something that, as much as we love to fight fish on ultralight gear, we love, you know, when that drag screams, and you know, in a lot of cases that can't be avoided regardless. But landing your fish as quickly as possible, and I can think of one fish in particular that this is so important, and that would be the muskie.
I've read some studies that just came out of the Carleton University, and they talk about, is it better to spend more time playing the fish on rod and reel and then not netting it at boat side because it's going to be more tired? Or is it better to get that fish into the net as fast as you can and then subdue it in the net? And they look at, you know, and this is going to come up at another one of the points, but this is the you know, if you're using light tackle, you're not using a net. You don't need to use a net because that fish is going to show up at the side of the boat. It's going to be tired. You can just handle it, and you don't even have to, you know, net it. You don't have to. Why not net it? Well, nets, we know, cause injuries to fins and scales and the mucus on the fish. We know that. So what's the worst? Which is worse, right? And you know, I think about, again, carp anglers, and they're using these 12-foot long, very bendy rods so they can manage the fish along the shoreline and sort of direct it. And they're using smaller hooks, and you know, these are epic battles. But carp are pretty tough, and it's probably tougher than salmon. So, you know, maybe then we'd need, they got to think about the small hook size, but they can make really strong, smaller hooks. So you don't need light tackle to use a strong, smaller hook. But I know there's some charter people who want to use longer, more whippy rods, which make the angler feel like they're having a bigger fight with smaller fish.
Right.
You see that on the with a lot of charter captains on the Fraser River when they're, you're catching 10 juvenile sturgeon for every one adult sturgeon. So why not extend the play and, let the person think they're really duking it out with a 4-foot sturgeon, a 3 or 4 foot sturgeon, and they're thinking, wow, that was a fight of my life. I can't imagine what a 10-foot sturgeon might fight like. But they're using these big whippy rods, and that's putting the fight into the arms of the angler, not so much on the fish. But so there's so many things that come into play on this. So many things.
Agreed. You mentioned nets. Obviously, avoid using landing nets as much as possible. Is there a particular net that we should use as opposed to another?
Well, the rubber nets, the knotless rubber nets were considered fish-friendly nets, right? They're smaller mesh size. There's no knots. There's no nylon. The braided nylon net that looked like something a commercial fisher would use. The coarse line that would rub the scales and rip on the fins. These softer rubber nets were supposed to avoid all that. But they're saying that's not necessarily the case. You get an active fish thrashing around in the net, and you're lifting it into the boat, and it's thrashing around in the net. There's gonna cause fin damage. There's gonna be some, the fish is rubbing the slime off its body just by friction, rubbing against that net, thrashing around inside the net. So it's more likely to catch a virus in the water because it's lost its protective slime coating. So there's a few things that can go wrong when you put a fish in the net. They're saying if you're going to do it, keep the net in the water and use it more like a playpen, so the fish is in the water. It's tired. You're just using it there to hold the fish so it doesn't swim away while you're extracting the hook, while you're resuscitating the fish, while you're taking some pictures, maybe some measurements, but you're not sort of wrapping the fish up in the net and sort of restraining it, right?
Yeah. Now, there's a bunch here that I think you could encompass together. One is avoid air exposure, limit touching of fish, and handle with wet hands. Those 3 points I think we could wrap into one when it comes to the handling of the fish. And obviously, we talk about nets. One thing that you mentioned, make sure it's wet. But when it comes to air exposure, and this is one of the things that we struggle with at the CFN Fish Off, when folks are targeting those muskie, especially, that time of year when you get those spikes in temperature where it gets up to 30, 31 degrees and the air temperature is ridiculously more warm than the water. Having those fish out as long as it takes to get a fish returned back into the water, try to minimize that as best as possible. That's about the best thing I could suggest.
Yeah, this research is saying no more than 10 seconds. 10 seconds, Scottie. They're saying limit it to below 10 seconds out of the water. Yeah. And again, these are, summer Chinook, big Chinook that are used to cold Pacific, ocean temperatures. And they're saying anything over 18 degrees Celsius. And so you're thinking, wow, 10 seconds. We've heard studies in Alabama that say, you take a big largemouth bass out of the water and you've increased its mortality rate by 50%. You take tarpon out of the water, you increase their mortality rate. You lift it. You're not allowed to lift a tarpon into the boat in Florida. The same with sturgeon. Anything over, I think, 6 feet or 5 feet, you're not allowed to lift it out of the water, not even for 5 seconds. So we know there's this research, muskie, midsummer muskie, when you're talking 85 degrees water temperatures, and they're just down in deeper pools trying to stay cool, and then you're pulling them out and fighting them, and then lifting them into, keeping them out of air, keeping where they can't breathe in the air, and it can really, it can the nail in the coffin. Let's put it that way.
Obviously, the most important thing is to release our fish immediately, and of course, in a lot of cases, especially when it comes to big predatory fish, we like to do that because we don't like to see the redness of those fins, because we know that it's stressing the fish. But I think one of the biggest things that I cringe, and especially now during the hard water season, and hands up, I know I'm not the only one. when you see a fish held vertically, especially by the gill plate, especially those big fish, I just absolutely cringe. And we do our very, very best at CFN to make sure that the pictures we post, and we don't want to take away from the excitement of the angler and that catch, but we do want to promote proper handling of fish. And when you see those big fish being held up by those gill plates, I tell you, I cringe. So when it comes to releasing your fish, there is a way to handle it properly, especially if you are going to grab it from the gills. There is a way not to get into the gill plate. There's a way not to put stress on the gill plate so that it cracks, because that there is, that crack, I'm getting shivers just thinking about it, because I hate that sound. Needless to say, use 2 hands. Get your fish down to the water line and then release it. Probably the best thing is not to release it until it's fully recovered. But needless to say, I'm going to let you talk on this topic because I have a fitter calling me, Lawrence. So you take it away.
Okay, buddy. Yeah. So this is interesting. They talk about, and I've heard this before. The scientists have said this as well now, in the Chinook salmon, is that, this whole idea of holding the fish by the tail or supporting it from underneath while it's recovering next to the boat. What you're doing is you're continuing the stress of the capture. You're holding the fish, you're restraining the fish. Fish aren't, they don't welcome that, right? This is not something they enjoy. To them, that's, the next step is being swallowed. That's how they've been avoiding that their whole life, is being captured and held and swallowed. So when you're holding onto their tail, or when you're, supporting their stomach next to the boat, and you're trying to, you think you're helping them. In fact, you're just prolonging the whole capture process and the stress of that capture process. You're not giving them a chance to get their heart rate down. It's maintaining their excessive heart rate, and they're not getting enough oxygen. So that's problematic. They're saying, just let them go. You're not doing them any favors. Let them go. And even if they flip up, roll over, they know they're rolling over. They know they're upside down. They'll manage that. What you need to do at that point is just stay nearby, so no birds of prey swoop in and scoop them up, right? That's the problem. When those birds of prey see that white belly, man, they're coming for it, right? I mean, how many of us have seen that, where we let a fish go, it flips up, and 30 seconds later there's a rock push, and that fish is just going on a airplane ride, a 2-claw airplane ride. So you want to sort of stay nearby a little bit, just to sort of ward off the birds of prey if it's of that size that a eagle or some sort of hawk can grab it. And otherwise, just let it be. Just let it be. If it's up, if it's floating belly up, it'll straighten itself out. If it won't, it wasn't going to happen anyways. You're not doing it any favor just by keeping it pointed in the right direction. It might look better, but you're not doing it any favor. Just let it go. Just let 100%.
It go. And I think probably and in this case, when you want to ensure that you're going to release a fish, one of the last points, because there's a couple that aren't that strong. I mean, they're suggesting that you don't you limit your interactions with the fish. I don't want to be telling anybody that. I think if you're handling these fish and taking the appropriate precautions, I don't want to, I don't want to be telling people don't fish. But at the end of the day, if you follow all of these practices that we've talked about up until this point, I think you're going to ensure that your fish are going to be released.
Oh, yeah. Like they're talking about a 15 to 20% mortality rate when you do it wrong, right? Yeah. That was their study. They said that if you don't do all these things, the mortality rate on the Chinook salmon on the West Coast is about 15 to 20% for releasing the Chinook. And so, which is still like, they're saying, look, if you're catching 1 or 2 fish, it's not the biggest deal. If you catch 10 fish and 2 die, but if you keep catching fish, and they're saying, you're going after a lot of smaller fish, and the mortality rate goes up, and you're catching 50, 60 fish, and then the mortality rate those numbers start to add up, right?
Yeah.
So then you think, well, okay, then I need to really make sure the mortality rate is very low, like that in 1 or 2%, so you can do that. Otherwise, who wants to say, hey, I got 100 fish, and then knowing that 20 15 or 20 of them died when you
100%.
release them.
100%. The rest of them, they talk about avoid fishing in locations if predators are present. Well, I mean, let's face it, if you're not fishing for top predators, there's predators all over the place. And I think they're talking more about, seals and orcas in this situation. So the rest of it, although it may not pertain to every species of fish, the ones we discussed do. The thing is, and this is what I hate about this, is it's great that we're educating folks, but we're educating the wrong people. The people that are here know all this stuff already. But needless to say, if you could pass this along, again, these podcasts are there for the sake of educating folks when it comes to, if they're beginners to angling, maybe they want to know a little bit more. Maybe they want to be ethical. Like there's a lot of folks that want to learn fishing, but they want to learn to do it right. It's not just about catching fish. So these kind of discussions that we have certainly help educate folks that want to learn, that truly want to learn. So I appreciate the article. I appreciate you, Lawrence, and of course the discussion of it. Now, I know you've got some other news articles that you want to talk about as well. So I'll give you. I
just want to say one more story on this, Scottie. And look, we can educate and we can inform. But there's a pyramid, there's a sort of at some point you have to sort of go to the next level, right? You have to be insistent. You have to be, you have to say, oh, look, you want to on my boat, these are the rules. And then even then, and if people aren't going to pay attention to it because they say, no, never mind. You're harshing my mill. I'm here having fun. I'm not doing it. I'm doing it my own way. And at some point, there's just going to be rules for everybody. I had a guy out in a couple of summers ago, early August. He said, Lawrence, can you take me and my daughter fishing? She's never caught a muskie before. I'd love her if she caught a muskie. And I said, okay, but it's August. So, the water temperatures are a bit high, not too bad. But I said, if we do hook one, let's keep it in the water. I said, I don't want to take it out of the water. And he said, oh, okay. Anyways, we hook one, we hand her the rod, she reels it in. Next thing you know, this guy's grabbed my net. Okay, he's going to use my net. That's fine. I got a big net. He's going to bring it over to the side of the boat. Now he unhooks it. He brings it out of the water. He hands it to his daughter. She holds the fish. She takes pictures. She's making a video. Everyone's happy. And I got, holy crap, this guy did not honor my request at all, right? So, I don't fish with him anymore, right? I don't fish with him anymore. And sometimes you just have to take a stand. You just have to take a stand. You inform. It's like a kid, right? You tell them, and then they still do it. Well, there's got to be some consequences.
Well, listen, I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for you, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to hit this out of the park. If you went fishing with someone that brought a weighted treble and started snagging fish, do you think you'd fish with that gentleman or that lady again?
No, you make a decision. You make a decision.
That's the chance we want to take. At the end of the day, folks, sometimes you don't have to browbeat. Sometimes you don't have to engage. You simply you have nothing to do with those folks because some people don't want to learn. Some people don't want to be taught. They think they're doing it the right way. You can give them a polite suggestion. But to be honest with you, at the end of the day, just don't associate with people that do that kind of stuff because if they're not going to be ethical, you don't want to hang out with those kind of people. Simple as that.
Hey, I got a little proposal here. I'm going to run by you, Scottie. So I'm just putting in a funding request for the Invasive Species Center, and they've got some funding available for. I'm looking at aquatic invasive species, so plant and animal life. That's and here's my angle on a grant, and give me some feedback, you guys, if you think this will fly or not. Look, we've got some great tools out there. My Catch app, the Fish Health app, Edmunds, invasive species reporting app. There's some phone numbers you can call. There's some websites you can go to for reporting invasive species. There. So we've got some tools out there. We've got some great instructional material on how to identify these different invasive species, aquatic species of plants and animals, fish and so on, and crayfish and so on, bait fish. And, wouldn't it be interesting if we put together an online tool that said, okay, look, we know there's invasive species are spreading. And now we also know, based on the science, that there's a lot of anglers who live near urban spaces around the Great Lakes. They fish in the Great Lakes, and they go to other lakes on the weekends. And maybe, you know, they do the clean, drain, dry thing. Maybe they don't do it well enough. Maybe they're shore fishing and they're just using waders, and they have tackle or kayaks, you know, you name it. There's many ways to transport invasive species, and we do our best, but is that enough? So I'm thinking maybe if we taught anglers how to identify, how to prevent is one thing, yeah, and then how to identify if there is signs of an invasive species that's been moved from, you know, maybe the Great Lakes to another body of water further away, you know, like an hour or two drive away from the Great Lakes to another favorite lake we have. And we know this is happening. We've seen the science in using the FishBrain app and then the movement of invasive species. Scientists have looked at that, and they can see direct linkages between where people are driving with their boats and kayaks and so forth, between urban and non-urban spaces, and the movement of these invasive species. So it's not like we're going to have a chance of stopping this 100%. So what we need to do then is maybe be able to spot these outbreaks before they take off, and then say, hey, know where to report it, know where to get more information and who to report it to, and then how to get involved with sort of, you know, addressing those outbreaks in these more pristine bodies of water. Do you think this is something anglers would want to participate in?
I don't know. That's a great question. Show of hands. Who's interested? I'll leave it at that. Lawrence, as always, my friend, you bring us a wealth of information. And as I said, folks, head on over. There is a wealth of information within the Bluefish Canada newsletter. This particular article really caught my eye simply because it pertains to a lot of fish, a lot of species of fish, not just salmon, and they're great handling practices. And at the end of the day, the wrong people are listening to this, but hopefully the right people who are can pass this on to those who want to learn. So I really appreciate your time, Lawrence.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
100%, my friend. We are going to have Jay Barnucz come on right after a word from his sponsor.
The fear of failure is failure itself. The world of science rewards the ones who are willing to try and fail. Because without the courage to embrace failure, ideas remain ideas. But with that courage to fail and to learn, ideas can change the world.
Jay Barnucz in the house. How you doing, Jay?
What's happening, buddy?
Buddy, we have a lot to talk about, you and I. There's a lot here. I've got some videos that are already queued and ready to go. Couple things. One in particular, I didn't even know about this. But this was Captain Barb. She posted this on her page. And when it comes to flashers, and I know you love your flashers.
Yep.
I'm going to ask you after you see this video, did you know this? Because I know I didn't.
Hey, I want to give you a handy tip on using your Vexilar FLX 28 to find bottom hardness. This is kind of a secret trick, so not everybody knows about it. You're going to start with your Vexilar turned off on normal mode and then turn your gain all the way up. Now when you turn it on, you're going to hold the gain button for a few seconds. It says bottom hardness as it comes on. And then you're going to see a number up here from 0 to 9. 0 being the softest and 9 being the hardest. So now we know on this body of water, it's my first time here, I know that that is mucky on the bottom and very soft. So that's it. Super easy, helpful way to find out what you're on when you're on a new lake. Good luck.
It's a secret though, so don't tell anybody.
It's a secret. Don't tell anybody.
Did you know that?
So I did know that, but I will give you a little word of warning for that. It's all relative, right? So, for example, we don't know when it interprets hard bottom, we don't know what hard means. Does it mean boulders? Or does it mean like gravel? Or does it mean sand? right? So I think it's still worth checking. So it's a bit of a relative measure, but there's a big difference between like really pretty hard bottom and pretty soft bottom, right? So, and finding those transitions can be really important throughout the seasons, let alone ice fishing. So being able to do that when you're ice fishing is a pretty cool concept.
I didn't even know you could do that with that unit.
I think, okay, so I don't want to sound too biased. I have no relationships with any electronic company, so I kind of use them all. I still use the flasher. I don't have forward-facing sonar yet. I think that I still think a flasher is still a great tool, and it's what I use the most, and what I'm most familiar with. So yeah, I don't know. I still love using a flasher. It's so fast. It's so quick, especially the newer Vexilars. Like there's the FLX 28 actually came out quite a while ago now. So the FLX 28 probably, it's not quite 10 years, but it's got to be 6 or 7 years. And then the FLX 30 came out 2 or 3 years ago. And then the FLX 33 or 34 is out now. And now in the whole Vexilar line, there's FLXs. There's an FLX 12 and an FLX 20. And FLX versus the old FL unit, Scottie, the big difference is FLX is LED. So when you're the old ones, like the little pins would spin and they would kind of glow, right? So now you have LED lights, and so they're just brighter. Now, as you go up, the features go up in them. And I think the best one for everybody, if you're going to go the flashers, an FLX 20, which has that bottom zoom, which we've talked about on this show many times. So that being able to lock on that bottom zoom, especially for you perch and walleye anglers out there, it's a very, very, very useful feature to have. But yeah, the FLX is just so full of features that I love the FLX 30, but I'll probably end up upgrading to forward-facing sonar, but I don't think I'll stop using the flasher. I think the forward-facing sonar coupled with the flasher is going to be a great tool. And I probably, because I'm usually fishing with Trevor, I think we don't need multiple forward-facing sonar units. I think one would be more than sufficient. So
we're going to get into fishing a little bit later, because there's an interesting video I came across today that pertains to those who love to use live bait, but when it's not available, what can you use in its place? And there's some really cool things that I wasn't aware of that folks can use. But before we do, unfortunately, we have some sad news. This didn't happen on our side of the border, and unfortunately it happened on the American side. But it's just a reminder, when it comes to tournaments, the gentleman who does this video, and I'll leave it to him to describe, it's just a reminder that, we have to be, as tournament directors, as boaters, as tournament participants, we have to be mindful that there's the potential that something could go wrong. I know when you're a tournament, we think everything's going to be okay. Yes, we prepare for the worst, but in most cases we expect the best. And unfortunately, it didn't happen for this poor lady. But I'll have this gentleman explain it.
Anderson Sheriff's Department said 3 people were rescued and 1 died as their boat sank some 300 feet from the shoreline during a fishing tournament. Now, they were fishing a private tournament for stripers, and the water is freezing. We have this cold front coming through. High winds. Even Dieter says in his live video before, he didn't understand why they were having this tournament on this day because the weather was so bad. But there were 2 men, a 7-year-old boy and a female on the boat. According to the Anderson County Coroner's Office, it appears as the boat began to sink, the people on the boat called the tournament staff members, and the staff members called the first responders. 4 victims were thrown into the water about 300 feet. 1 swam to shore, or was able to swim to shore. 2 others were assisted by another boat, and a woman was found just off the shoreline in the water. They believe that all the victims were in the water for about 10 to 20 minutes. When the first responders got there, they gave CPR to the woman, and then they also took all 4 people to the hospital for hypothermia. And later the woman was confirmed deceased. Now, I don't usually, and I don't want to throw any shade at anyone because I'm sure they did everything, but we don't ever talk about PFDs or rescue beacons or any of that stuff. We always assume that we're going to be all right. But you have to make the right decisions for yourself and the passengers on your boat. And I'm sure they made the best decisions possible. But the weather was horrible, high winds. There was a lot of factors that probably led into this. But this is a horrible, tragic story that my heart goes out and my thoughts and prayers go out to all these people and the family members. And I think there are times we need to make better decisions. And to be honest, there's a lot of times that tournaments get canceled because of high winds, and we as fans get upset. We need to make sure that we don't get upset over things like this because they have rules in place to make sure that anglers are safe at all times. And when you're on a 4-person boat, you're probably on a little bit bigger boat. But for the wind to push it over, bring in water and capsize it is really, there must have been a lot of wind. And as a boat owner and boat driver, you need to be cognizant of your surroundings and also the weather. But I don't want to put any blame on anyone. I want to make that very clear. I don't want to put blame on anyone because this is a really tragic, horrible story.
It is. I never like to hear about anybody passing when they're enjoying our beloved pastime, but it is a reminder, Jay. You know, things can go wrong, and there is an onus on. It's a shared partnership onus that tournament directors and the anglers need to step up in a way to make sure that we return to the dock safely.
Yeah, it's such a Scottie, it's such a endless loop of a discussion about do we go out or don't we go out?
Yeah.
And I've been in the situation before. I've been on both ends of it where we got to make a call. Either I'm running an event or helping to run an event, or I'm an angler going out in less than favorable conditions. There is no right or wrong answer. In fact, even in Ontario, Canada now, Environment Canada, we don't even have wind warnings anymore, right? We just have advisories because it's really about where you are and where you're going to go. I've been out in crazy weather and it's been fine. And, and then you add to these events, cold water, right? So now you exponentially increase the risk to these people on the water, right? So it's, there's no right or wrong answer. And these tragedies, I would say, they're not really unavoidable. Like, accidents do happen. Regardless of all the precautions that we take, accidents do happen. So, along the same lines, it's not even so I heard on the news today, and this is a really sad story. So a 9-year-old boy was killed on the QEW at Bronny Road.
Yeah.
And I was listening. So I commute a lot, a few days a week to Burlington and back. And I listen to a lot of news radio. So if I'm not listening to fishing podcasts, I'm listening to news radio to get some traffic updates, especially as I get close to the city. And I heard on the one news broadcast that it's believed. Now there's some extenuating factors here. Some people weren't wearing seatbelts, others were. It's all hearsay right now because they're still doing the investigation. But it's believed that fatigue might have played a role into the incident because they were coming home from a fishing trip late at night. And this is something that I think about regularly because sometimes, dude, when we go to Quinny or Simcoe, sometimes we're getting up 2-3 o'clock in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And fatigue is a real problem, and especially on our highways have more cars than ever now. And it's something that I think about regularly, and to a point where I drive for a living, not so much this time of year, although I drive regularly to work, but my other half of the year when I'm doing research, I'm driving every day, boats, trucks, constantly on the highways. And fatigue is a real factor. And I think as I age too, being 50 now, tend to be a little more aware of being tired. Does that make sense?
100%. I had no idea that they were returning from a fishing trip. That's the first I heard of that.
That's what I heard on the news. And whether they were or they weren't, it's an awful story. But it does make you think about how many times, Scottie, I know you've been on some serious epic journeys the last few months up to some promised walleye grounds, right? Mm-hmm. And those are long trips, late at night, dark, like the caffeine is rolling, right? Absolutely. And it just makes me think about just maybe the message is just to tell people just to be cautious when they're out there. And especially you add to it icy roads or what have you, right? So, yeah.
Well, to your point, unfortunately, last year I got myself in a situation where I had to come home from Duberville, and then we had a kids event the very next day. Got absolutely no sleep in 48 hours. And yeah, I felt it. There's no doubt about it. To your point, I'm not doing that again this year for the simple fact that I can't. That was a grueling exercise I didn't think I had it in me, to be quite honest. I was surprised that I got through it. But to your point, know your limits and stay with them.
Yeah. On more important things, Shane, you got a 450 XD. That's the hub of choice, man. That is my when they came out with that hub. That was the first one they came out with. Eskimo. That was the first year they came out with the full size doors, and it's still going pretty strong. There's a little bit. I have a little bit of wear and tear where the poles meet the bottom of the shelter, Scottie, meet the ground.
Yeah.
So that's we've probably put 200 days on that shelter, maybe that much, at least over 100 days on that shelter. And they're not cheap. In fact, it's amazing how much they've gone up in price. When we bought ours, I want to say they've increased by like 20 to 25% in price in 3 years. It's amazing. But those Eskimo shelters are, they are by far my favorite. I'm biased, but I love those Eskimo shelters a lot.
That's awesome. Before we get into some of the stuff that we're talking about when it comes to ice fishing, I know that your segment last week when it came to the weather, and this is a great segue. What does it look like, Jay? I don't know about you, but I know there's a lot of folks that are getting pretty excited about what's coming.
Dude, there's some really cool stuff coming, and I don't know. I'm gonna share some slides. I'm gonna share some slides because it's really hard to explain what is going on, and I almost can't believe it's happening. And I know I don't want to just focus on Ontario because we have so many viewers across the country, especially in the prairies, but you always got to look at the worst case scenario. And for us, that's Southern Ontario, right? If we're cold, everywhere else is cold, right? So let's just kind of jump through a little bit here. So this was on the Weather Network this week. In fact, this was yesterday, I believe. And this is remember last year, we almost had no ice on the Great Lakes, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're already at like 17, we're already at like 10, 11% for all the Great Lakes. And it jumped up last week immensely. And it wasn't, I don't know about you, but it was cold last week, but it wasn't bitterly cold. But the temperatures were consistently
and
no wind. Minus 18, minus 20 at night, minus 10, minus 8 during the day. Got up to minus 4 a couple times, minus 15, like kind of ebbs and flows, but no wind. And in areas where there wasn't snow, where we didn't have the lake effect snow happening, we got good ice. We're gonna jump ahead here. Like this is the Great Lakes ice coverage figure, and literally a week ago there was almost no ice, and you could see here Lake Erie. Literally a week ago there was almost zero ice, and there's that little blip. I know it's hard to see, but that little blip right there, like. It jumped up like 20% in under a week. So now typically Erie doesn't really get a lot of ice coverage, but I'm showing it as the worst case example because Erie has the Western Basin, which is famous walleye fishing down here year round. Yep. And ice fishing, I've never been out there, but I know, dude, growing up, watching in-fishermen pound Lake Erie walleyes was one of my favorite videos. They're all my favorite. Who am I kidding? But I loved Lake Erie walleye episodes. And then right here, Long Point Bay, haven't been out yet, but I heard reports of like on this is end of last week, like 3 to 4 inches midweek. And by the weekend, there was like 5 to 6 inches. Now, we've gone through a little bit of a warm spell today. And unfortunately, in some areas, now Lake Erie's fine. So everyone is listening from around here, you're good. But I will say that I did hear some stories. The Grand River today, there had to be a rescue on the Grand today. Yeah. Now I want to give people fair warning about the Grand River. The Grand can get really safe ice, but it just hasn't been cold enough yet to really lock that place up. And so I know down at Fishmasters, there was 4 to 5 inches this past weekend. But as soon as we got that warmer weather today, that current starts eating away at that ice. And so it's nice when it's -10 for a week and just kind of locks it in, but we haven't had that yet. So there's sort of 2 areas of the Grand where anglers fish. I don't want to give away too much because I don't want people taking risks going down there, but you got to be careful by the dam. Obviously, the closer to the dam you get, the more hazardous it is. And there was rescues today by the dam. So I don't fish by the dam. I never have. And yeah, and strong winds too, Ed, good point. So in areas where you still have some open water, you're going to get some strong winds.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at some of the long range forecasts coming up. This is the European model, which has been pretty good for temperature trends over time. And this is sort of the current situation we're seeing right now in Ontario. And we're seeing in sort of in that northwestern and up into Manitoba up here. And it's cold, dude. Like, look at Winnipeg. It is cold, man. We're looking at like tonight. This is tonight's forecast, -20s, right? That sort of pink, red color. But even down here, we got -6. It's not going to be super cold, but it's going to be cool. But look as the week goes on. So this is getting into the 19th. So this is getting into basically into Saturday and this week. And so that cold air is just going to keep kind of coming down. Like, we're literally getting into polar vortex, and we're not even looking at the whole picture. Mm-hmm. There's some cold air out over Oklahoma in places now that's kind of in the bottom left of this figure. But this is into next week, dude. Look at this. We're going to get into like up just north of Ottawa into the -30s, down right here in the Banana Belt, man, -teens for highs, -teens. I can't believe it. Now, this is just a forecast. This might change, but this is all great news for ice operators, for tackle store owners, and of course the anglers out there. So it's exciting to see everyone getting out. Just a little bit of a close-up. So this is this week. Now, this is what's going to happen on the weekend. We're going to get a little bit of a mild spell. And I want to mention this because this is the type of weather that I love fishing in. Mm-hmm. And it's not because it melts the ice. This is a little figure I'm going to show. This is Barrie, okay? So, Scottie, can you see this dark line here?
Yeah.
That I'm kind of tracing? Okay. Yeah. This is the barometric pressure line. So on Weather Underground, this is a tip for everyone. Go to Weather Underground, okay? Type in your favorite location where you like to fish. Go to the 10-day forecast. And then if you scroll down, there's a whole bunch of figures, precipitation, other things here. But what you're going to see here is this is the forecasted, not actual, forecasted barometer. And what you're going to see here is on Wednesday, we're going to hit this. I picked Barrie because this isn't just localized. Like, the barometer is pretty broad. So Barrie is nice and central to a lot of our viewers, right? Algonquin, Nipissing, down to where we are. And actually, I compared this line form to what we're going to get down here in Norfolk. It's very similar. If I was an angler, okay, you got high pressure on Wednesday, okay? But where this is going to sink down here, this low pressure system right here. Yeah. So see, Friday into Saturday. Now, Saturday, what makes Saturday tricky could be snow. So we could see a snow event, which makes travel a little more tricky. But I love these falling barometers, man. So you're going to get the steady drop in barometer through the week into the weekend, starting on Wednesday. And what's nice too is when you're looking at highs of 0, then that's great, comfortable ice fishing weather, man. Right there, Scottie. Like that's almost like no gloves ice fishing. But then you're going to see, starting Saturday into Sunday, that high pressure come back in, and we're going to get -14 for lows, there's all those minus teens, minus 17, minus 18, minus 16, those double-digit highs. So that's great. That's great. So we got good ice-making weather next week. Why is that good? We already have safe ice. Well, we're going to get more safe ice. The big lake's going to start to freeze up. We're going to see guys getting out for lake trout and whitefish. Maybe we're going to see that happen before February. Okay.
They are saying next week's cold weather is going to be some of the coldest weather we've seen on record from what they're saying. They could potentially dip down to temperatures that we haven't seen in a long time around here.
This is that low pressure system coming in. It's going to come in from the south and come up through. So it's going to hit Windsor first and come up that way. This is just one of those Alberta clippers that's going to come through and give us a little bit of snow. So that's the tricky part about these falling barometric pressure events. Fishing can be great, but the travel can be crap. So anglers, please be careful out there. But let's get into some long range outlook here. So this is getting into that next week again, right? Like we are going to see some cold, right? We're going to see like dipping into the minus 20s. You know, this is the midnight forecast on January 22nd. So that's a week today, dude. It's next Tuesday. So it's over a week. That's 9 days away. But it's very optimistic. But I feel that we're seeing these trends, and these trends have been the trends I showed you guys last week, Scottie. We trended that way. Everything was pretty close. And so I think, and I even read on Twitter, there's a couple of meteorologists that I follow on Twitter, and I love their updates because they post daily. A couple of them are predicting this is going to hold true right till early into early February right now. So this is great. I know, and it's just nice to see that there's so many people out ice fishing. And if anyone's on Facebook this weekend, like I didn't get up this weekend, unfortunately, but I was living vicariously through so many friends, man. Like I saw so many big walleye on Quinny come over the top, big buckets of perch on Simcoe, and down here on Lake Erie, walleye on the ground. I'm getting text messages all weekend from buddies who are out. Just fantastic. I think the only area, and from Nipissing too, sorry, George, but they're loving Nipissing. Nipissing's lots of fish. The only areas I didn't see a lot of fishing updates from friends or from Facebook is where we see a lot of the snow belts, where all that lake effect snow came in. So
I was just going to say, like Muskoka, you didn't see a lot of reports coming from Muskoka.
No, Halliburton, like those areas.
Even Georgian Bay, for that matter. There's only a few.
I know a lot of anglers out on Rice, but Rice was south of all that lake effect snow last week. So, yeah, but this is all good. This is all good. It's shaping up really well. It's going to be great. So
on that note, too, in regards to the walleye, we are doing an egg count here at CFN, and it's basically just to celebrate those from our community that are releasing walleye. And what we'll do is Jay and I are guesstimating based on the size how many eggs could potentially be released with each fish. And I'd like to say so far, and we haven't had a lot of great ice to fish on. We're over 1 million potential eggs released back into the wild. So congratulations to our CFNers.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. And you know, it's kind of funny because, you know, I want to be out, but at the same time, it's like, I kind of want to wait a little bit. If this forecast holds, dude, I can fish anywhere I want in about a week and a half time. Amen. So, you know, over Christmas, you know, dude, I'm still a little congested, dude. It's been 2 weeks, this flu, like hanging on. And I was a little bummed out not to get a lot of fishing in over Christmas break, but I'm telling you, and I plan on working, but and last week of January, Trevor's got some exams and he's got a couple days off. So I think I'm gonna burn a couple of vacation days and do some midweek trips. So I know he's got a couple friends. I think Jeff Penner and Nolan Isaac might be listening on tonight's show. So Trevor's already bumped it to me. He's like, Dad, so how do you feel about a couple of guys coming down here to go ice? I'm like, that sounds fantastic. So, yeah, we might have a little ice fishing trip planned. So
it's awesome. Scottie,
what are we doing for CFN for ice fishing this year? What are you feeling with all this good news?
Well, I will say this. I know Donnie and Ashley from Hot Box Huts has reached out and are willing to host a CFN meet and greet. I'd like to say that we're going to go forward with that. The only issue I have is that we're getting really close to show season, and unfortunately, it might be difficult to juggle. But I'm going to take a look. As I said, right now I'm day to day just because I'm attached to this freaking phone and being on call. Once I get through that, I'm going to give Donnie a call and see what is available. See if we got some huts that we can set aside for our CFNers. But I would like to say early February at the very latest. Like, I know we have our show on the 9th, but early February.
I think so. I'm a calendar guy, man. Heather manages the calendar upstairs, and I think, like, looking at, you guys got the show in Chatham and stuff, and I don't want to put it out, but I'm gonna put a date out there. Probably that February 1st and 2nd is probably like, that's probably about the only weekend we got, dude.
I would have to say that you're probably 100% right. So I'm gonna reach out to Donnie and see how available or what kind of availability they have, and see if we can get something booked. Because, dude, I'm like you, man. It has been far too freaking long to be ice fishing. And at the end of the day, Jay, it's all about building community, and we just have not had that opportunity because we just haven't had the ice. So we need to take full advantage of it. So to your point, again, it will be something that I'm going to be tasked to do to make sure that we can get a group together.
Awesome, man. Yeah, that's that. And I think that's the weekend where things are really going to set up well for a lot of folks, is that, we're going to get that cold weather next week. And then that last week of January, I think we're going to be in the right in the midst of the coldest weather we've had probably in about 5 years. So so that's great. It's perfect timing, especially for out on the perch grounds, right? Because we won't be limited we won't have to probably worry about machines. Like, you can get out there, other than you probably, I would never take a truck on the ice anymore. But like, for folks who have trouble getting around and they want to use machines or what have you, I think we'll be in really, really good shape. Next week, I wouldn't push it yet, but that last week of January, I think it's going to be a great time. So
100%. Boat show next. Boat shows this week.
Joe.
Yeah, 100%. It's hard to think about boats right about now, but there's never a bad time to think about boats. So,
dude, there's never a good weekend for anything, is there, Scotty?
I know. It's crazy. Now, if we do get out on Simcoe, or let's face it, anybody else gets out on the hard water, and let's just say, unfortunately, your aerator dies. Perhaps you're crossing over zones, so you can't take those fish to where you'd like to. Let's just say that you don't have the luxury of using live bait. I came across a video, and some of the things that are shared in this video, I think I have not heard of a couple of these, so I want to share them with you folks. But to me, the harder I look at some of these products, the more I want to use them. Have a look.
I wanted to cover some alternatives to live bait for tipping your jigs and spoons when you're out ice fishing. All right, guys, so here's one of my favorites for a live bait alternative, and that is beaver tail. So beaver tail is an extremely tough bait. It stays on the hook extremely well. It's got lots of oil and fat in it, so lots of good scent, and the fish absolutely love it. Sometimes it's better than live bait because it stays on the hook so well. And Gullickson Bait Company makes it. They package it in a little bag like this, and one little bag will last you a long time just because of just how tough this stuff is. And it's a great option for just putting in your tackle bag or your pocket, carrying with you. This stuff is basically indestructible and preserved, so it really doesn't go bad. All right, guys, number 2 is the Euro Tackle Mummy Worm. These are actual wax worms that are preserved. They'll last almost forever, and they're pretty flexible. They're not quite as flexible as a live waxy, but if you roll them between your finger and thumb a little bit, they really loosen up and have the consistency almost exactly of a live wax worm. And they're a great option if you're pan fishing and you don't have waxies or spikes with you. All right, guys, here's one that I've been using quite a bit when I want to add a little glow and scent to one of my hooks when I'm jigging at night, and that is the Billy Rub Baits Nugget. Comes with the famous Billy Rub scent in it. You can get all the different scents, and it's just basically a little egg, and it glows. So you can glow it up, and it just glows that hook, but when a fish comes up to eat it, it's squishy, so it's still going to hook that fish just great. And it just gives the fish something to key on that hook, and a little bit of scent and a little bit of action. They work great during the daytime too, but definitely awesome at night when you want to add just a little bit of glow to that hook to make those fish target that hook. So yeah, Billy Rub Baits Nuggets, they come in all kinds of flavors: waxworm, emerald shiner, all the usual billy rub stuff. So definitely check those out. All right, guys, number 4 is a really cool one from Fish Daddy Outdoors called the Double Eye. And basically, it's made to be used in place of a fish eye or a fish head on a spoon, especially for game fish. And it acts just like a minnow head. It's got these 2 little dangly pieces here, and then it's got a holographic eye on each side. It's made from biosilicone. It's got a great scent to it as well, and it has basically the identical action of a minnow head, and it's a lot more durable. And honestly, I think it looks a lot better underwater, and I've caught a lot of fish using that as a tipping bait for my spoons and jigs. So definitely check those out. Again, I'll leave a link below for those. Super cool bait. All right, guys, here's another billy rub product that I've used many times, and this is a trick you may have seen in some of my other videos, but it absolutely fits too well in this one not to mention it. And that is to just open your billy rub scent. It's an oil-based paste basically, and you're going to dip your hook in there until you get a good gob on there. See that? Big gob. That's going to stay on the hook. It's going to add action. It's going to add scent. It's going to add flavor to that hook, and it's going to look great underwater. Going to give the fish something to key in on, and you won't have any problem hooking that fish. There's nothing in the way. This particular scent is kind of a sleeper. Leopard frog. It's really good. I also like nightcrawler, waxworm, emerald shiner, and smelt. Those are kind of my favorite flavors of billy rub. So definitely try that out. It works, and it's amazing how long that stuff stays on the hook and how much scent it puts into the water. So definitely put that in your bag of tricks when it comes to alternatives for live bait. Now, what about that 6th bonus? Well, it's a feathered treble. I added a feathered treble to the Zero Tackle Z Darter V2. This is a little clam feathered gaff treble, and these are great. Now, this doesn't necessarily add scent, but what you can do is you can dab this in liquid scent. Fish Daddy makes a great liquid scent that I've been using, and you just put a couple drops on that feather and it holds the scent. So it adds scent and action. So tip some of your spoons ahead of time, tip some of your jigging lures ahead of time, dip them in a little liquid scent, and you're going to be back in business. So there you go, guys. There's your bonus. Thanks for watching.
Some good stuff there, I'll tell you.
Oh, dude, a lot to unpack there. Okay, let's I got some ideas as I'm working furiously in the background here. So I want to give a big shout out to Matt up at H&H Tackle in Brantford. He got his maggots in last week, and so in the last few years I've brought up Matt's maggots. Now a lot of shops carry maggots. I know Gord Trask up in Peterborough at Get Fishing always has lots of great creeper crawlers for the ice anglers. Not just minnows. Minnows are great, but they're a bit of a pain. So maggots are a fantastic alternative, as well as waxworms, which is mentioned in that as well. Now I'm going to show, if I can do this, Scottie. I'm going to show this here. It's kind of a close up. Let me see if I can do this here. Present, share screen. All right. So this is on that same concept. This is actually the Gulp minnow head. So Berkeley has this similar bait out, and basically what I love about this bait is that it has that hard body where you can just put a hook through, and it has the tentacles, right? And it's got that Gulp scent. And if anyone who's used Gulp before knows, it lasts a long time, and fish love it. And I will transfer the Gulp. And now what's great about Gulp too is you can have different baits. Doesn't bleed. So you can have a bunch of different Gulp baits in one container. So don't be afraid to combine baits, because with ice fishing, it's all about condensing and getting ultralight, right? Yeah. So at least I do. So I'll put a bunch of different Gulp baits into one baggie or into one good jar, and I'll mix them up. So I'll have like my Gulp minnows, Gulp minnow heads, and even the Gulp salmon eggs. Like, you know how a lot of, and this was mentioned as well, so artificial salmon eggs are a great ice fishing bait, especially for perch and panfish, just to add a little bit of color to the bottom of that hook. And it's artificial too. Like everything we're talking about here is artificial lures, right? And adding that scent is just as important. And I would even argue that scent's more important through ice fishing than open water. And why that is because typically with ice fishing, Scottie, and you'll probably agree, those fish are a little slow, aggressive, and they like to size up their options, right? They come in and they look. They usually don't come in and kamikaze that bait. They will come in and take a look at it, size it up, and decide what they're going to do. That's why scent is so important on your lures. And so we use scent a lot. I love scented lures. And I haven't played around with some of the gels too much. I have a little bit in the past. I do find though that they get a little bit messy, but having some gulp baits, especially for panfish and perch and crappie, can't go wrong. Can't go wrong.
100%. 100%. And yeah.
Yeah. So Richard, pet shops will have maggots. They'll also have waxworms. But I'm going to tell you right now, you will pay an arm and a leg for those things at those stores.
Yeah.
If you can find a bait dealer that has waxworms or maggots, highly recommend. Like I got 1,000 maggots for $27.
Well, you can't do that at a pet store.
No. Like you'll be lucky to get 100 maggots for $27.
Okay.
Like maybe 50 for I think. So then you're like rationing the maggots. Like I have. They're in the fridge downstairs in the basement. So yeah. Maggot season is not a popular one around here. As understanding as Heather can be, maggots in the fridge are not a good. And thank God we have a second fridge downstairs. That's all I have to say. Now, the thing about maggots though too is my garage, for example, Scottie, it's not heated, but it is insulated, so it never freezes in my garage unless it's like minus 30 out. So I will keep maggots in the garage, and they just have to be cold. Just don't want them to freeze, but they will last. And again, night crawlers, dude, just a good old night crawler. Like I've caught so many splake and brook trout over the years on a willow branch and a length of line on a night crawler, right? So minnows are great, but I find as the years go by, I use minnows less and less, and because I find that you don't need to use them. And as long as you're willing to be mobile and move and work hard, minnows are kind of overrated. So,
well, when we fish throughout the rest of the year, let's take hard water aside. It's all reactionary bite. Yes, scent might have something to do with it, but let's face it, most of the strikes that we get are reactionary. So if fish is already hungry, I don't know if it actually senses or smells or tastes anything. But when it comes to hard water fishing, I mean, let's face it, we see the videos. Those fish will sit there and gaze at a bait for minutes, sometimes hours, before they'll actually either swim away or strike at it. They don't get that luxury in the softwater season. They either got to snap at it or watch it disappear.
No,
so
I agree.
Yeah, scent is big.
Yeah. And it's all everything we do in ice fishing is downsized. Like not everything, but I'm going to say what Scottie probably 90% of the stuff I use is way smaller than I'd ever use the rest of the year. Like whether it's a walleye, whether it's a northern pike, like everything is downsized ice fishing. We're trying to make little tidbit offerings for these bigger fish. And even a big rattle bait, maybe for a walleye is kind of normal size bait, but typically everything we're using is pretty small. Like even a 1 ounce, dude, even a 1 ounce buckshot is a pretty small offering for a big walleye.
Amen.
That can choke down a 10-inch gizzard shad, right? So everything's scaled down. And so I agree with you, dude. Scent is so important because those fish have such time to look at these offerings, and it will help. I think it will help.
And also to just go back to that gentleman that provided that video, Hooked on WI, I believe it's Hooked on Wisconsin is what it's the acronym is meaning. He's got a lot of great videos when it comes to ice fishing. So if you're looking for the must-haves in your tackle box, things that you just certainly can't go out on the hard water without, he does some really, really good videos that will basically point you in the right direction. And the thing I do like, he's not really product specific. So, I mean, whether he's sponsored by these products or not, I don't really know. But based on that video alone, Billy Bob might be the only one that he might have an inkling of sponsorship with. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff that he mentioned, one, I've never heard of, and two, looks absolutely ridiculous. That oil-based Billy Bob scent that you dip your spoon into, when we're done here, I'm definitely going online to see where I can get that. That looked awesome.
I'm loving some of the stories here. I'm seeing so Scott Randy, yeah. So the belly skin off a perch, yeah. So that works great too. So the one in the video that was shown, I jumped on his website. It looks like basically it's a piece of pork rind, right? So that's basically what it is. It's preserved pork rind, and it will last for so long, and it probably has a bit of scent, but it probably has a very subtle action to it. So that's a great bait for panfish. But yeah, like Scott, like using a perch belly, pork rind, perch bellies or eyes are great, right? So yeah, and some anglers in the country have to do that because of limitations on live bait. Absolutely. Now, Trevor, if you're going to talk about silkies, you're going to get trouble from Jim because he likes to keep that pretty close to his chest. So we've heard Jim talk about the clam silkies. They're a really unique bait, and I encourage someone to go look them up. What they are is a little rubber ball with a bunch of little actual silk threads coming out of it. And when you thread that onto your teardrop jig, and then you don't have to add anything else, but I'll usually add like a little plastic behind it. And it actually creates this like really slow fall, and it makes your jig profile look so much bigger, and it pulses. It's pretty impressive bait. Now, Erica, you and Mark, oh boy.
They lost some maggots back in the day in the fridge.
That has happened. That has happened before here. We don't talk about those events, but yeah, no one enjoys maggots. Like it's bad enough when night crawlers get out and row bags go bad, but when there's actual maggots in the fridge where you keep your food, that is not. I'm okay with it, but most people wouldn't be. That's great. Oh, Craig, golden, yeah. So the larvae from goldenrod. Yeah. So the little cyst that grows on the goldenrod stem, there's a little worm in there, and so I have buddies, and it's not just ice fishing. Like this is kind of a survivalist thing to me. If you're walking a brook trout stream, Scottie, or someplace like that, and you're having a tough time catching some fish, go find a goldenrod, crack the little cyst open, and pull that little worm out and put it on a tiny hook. It is, and I know guys that will go harvest the little balls off the goldenrods in the fall and keep them for ice fishing. I've heard of that before.
Wow,
that is dedication. That is dedication. Craig, good for you, man. Good for you. That's crazy.
Amazing. Craig, thanks so much for offering. I didn't even know there was a worm in there. That's incredible. Richard, yes, Richard talks about videos that he's seen from Norway. One in particular, how they jig for fish is a little different than how we do it here. I did download a video. We will talk about it next Monday because it is unique. I'm not sure if it would work over here, but basically it's an oversized spoon. One in particular that I downloaded has a light in the center of it. So it is an incredible attractant to any kind of fish, especially in low light conditions. But it's a presentation that I can honestly say I've never seen over here for ice fishing.
So, Craig, my understanding from the regulations, and I could be wrong, so don't quote me on off of Facebook here, but so is it illegal to use perch parts? So it is not, as long as you're using like the parts that are not edible, so that you're using like basically the guts, okay, so, or the eyes or the heads. I wouldn't make it a habit. I don't play around with the pork bellies. I do know, and it might be different in Saskatchewan, but in Ontario, using perch eyes is not a problem. But if you're going to use the belly part, the belly meat, I wonder if, I don't want to get anyone in trouble, so I wouldn't play around with that. But to be honest, the perch eyes are probably my favorite thing to use, especially on, not favorite thing to use, but if you're out on a day perch fishing and it is just slow and we're struggling, I will put a perch eye down. It is something that really could get those fish turned on, especially if you're getting lots of lookers, but not a lot of takers.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, Jay. If you are out on the ice and you get visited by a CO, or anybody from the MNR for that matter, is it not in your best? Is it better not to be cutting up fish when you're out on the ice?
Yeah, that's kind of how I see it too. Like if you're going to eat fish, I think you should do it in a way where you could tell the CO that we had lunch. We had shore lunch today. Here's because you have to also dispose of your fish properly, right? So, and I think to be respectful, I don't know if I would be just dumping a bunch of fish down the hole. Even if that's fine, I don't like. So you cleaned your fish, you put the fish guts down the hole. Well, you could be ruining that spot for somebody else, right? Yeah. So we have to dispose of the remains properly, which probably means you should bring them in a bag back to shore and dispose of them properly. So I don't want to judge. I don't do a lot of cooking on the ice. I'm too busy fishing. I save that for when I get home. Every minute I can fish is more important to me, to be honest. But I do love a good fish fry. Even a skinnier version of me still loves a good fish fry, Scotty. Like that is something that I will not ever not do.
Amen, brother. Amen.
But definitely, I would, if you're going to cook on the ice, be prepared to explain yourself to a CO. And I'm not saying you're at fault, but have your story lined up and make sure you leave remains that are identifiable to the fish, right? Or to the CO, sorry, of the fish that you were consuming.
Shane brings up another great presentation. The Thunder Mist, those eye drops, they work.
Yeah. Thunder Mist has some really innovative baits, and the eye drops for sure. That's one of them there. So
fruit leather paddle tails, or is that fruit leather or fruit leather?
I think he's talking about like fruit, like the fruit roll-ups. That's what he's talking about, like dehydrated fruit.
What
is that? Ed, is that what you're talking about? Dehydrated fruit, like a fruit roll-up. So that it's possible, man. Yeah. We went to Trevor will still tell this story. I think he was probably only like 6 or 7, but he remembers. We went out east one time with the family for a vacation, and we stopped at a culvert, and there was brook trout swimming around. And we had rods, but we had no bait. We had a license, but we didn't have any bait, like no worms. We tried a spinner. Spinner wouldn't work. It was so low and clear they'd scoot away. So, dude, I just took a piece of my peanut butter sandwich, took some peanut butter and a piece of bread, balled it up on a little tiny, like the size of a salmon egg, put it on my hook, and I caught a brook trout on a piece of a peanut butter sandwich.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So, yes, what Ed is talking about is exactly as you said, fruit roll-ups.
Well, like if I had to fish with fruit roll-ups, Heather and Stephanie would eat them all before we got to the lake. So they love their snacks. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Trevor remembers. I caught the brook trout on Stephanie's sandwich. That's right. Stephanie was not happy that I used her sandwich to catch a brook trout. But anyway. So that is one of the most important things. And I can almost guarantee that's what will happen in the near future is ice fishing is just one of those activities that, you can get out with. Everyone can go. Anyone can go ice fishing. It's probably one of our favorite family activities fishing wise. Like as much as all these photos, Scotty, of us kayak fishing as a family and stuff, I'm going to ask this family, I'll bet if I ask them what their favorite way of fishing is, because ice fishing involves, like, as long as they're warm, this is all the trick. Keep everybody warm, everyone warm, and everybody fed. That is the trick. So, like pizza pockets on a buddy heater, lights out good. Yeah. And if you can go, like some of the places we go ice fishing, there's like food trucks nearby, dude. I'll do a food truck run and bring it back. Like I'm not, it's an all day thing. I will give up a little bit of fishing just to go bring some food out to keep people happy, because those are great memories, man.
Freaking men.
Yeah.
Jay, this has been a great segment. I hate to ask, do you have any more that you want to offer? Or?
No, that's it, dude. We did. I think we're going to keep the forecast coming every week. I think that I get asked more about, and it's not just about weather, but it's forecasting the fishing, right? So what's going on in the next week, and what are we looking forward to in the week ahead? And it's actually nice to share positive news, dude. Listen, 2025's kind of, I'm not a big news guy, and I made the mistake of watching some of the news on the weekend. Wildfires, viruses. Thank God we go ice fishing, buddy. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, this is it, because the rest of the world is dealing with some really unfortunate things, and those wildfires. I'll tell you, what a travesty!
Crazy, crazy. And so we're starting out a little rough, but I think everyone, but what's great though is that everybody I know this past weekend, I think on Facebook, was out ice fishing. Like that, my feed is just full of ice anglers, and everybody, I was jealous, but I was also living vicariously through them. And some of that, you know me, man, if I'm not feeling good that I can't go ice fishing and do things like that, I'm thinking about fishing and I'm thinking about Monday Night Live, and I'm like, what can we talk about? And then what am I doing? I'm sitting on weather forecast. So instead of fishing, I'm thinking about fishing. So that's my guilty pleasure, Scotty. So,
well, Jay, you know what? By all means, bring your guilty pleasures to us. We will embrace it. And then some, my friend, every day of the week and twice on Sunday. We thank you so much for what you do bring to our community and what you do for our industry as a whole.
And before I go, I want to scroll up a little bit. I want you to make sure you record this. I just saw it from from George, his comment. Do you see this comment about the walleye eggs?
Let me see.
It's up above my H&H tackle post. So I'm just going to read it out to you, but we want to make sure we save this.
Okay.
So to be functionally mature, a female walleye needs to be 1 kilogram in size, minimum. Okay. Yeah. A female walleye of this weight. I lost it. You got highlighted though. Great. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes when you scroll back up, the comments kind of disappear for a second. That's a me thing. So smaller females need to be in excellent condition, lots of fat around the organs, 2% body weight, etc. Average relative fecundity is 50,000 eggs per kilogram. That's 100,000 eggs per 2 pound. That's a lot. That's a lot of eggs. 25,000 eggs per pound.
Yeah.
Holy crap, dude. That's a lot of eggs. I don't even know if I knew that. George. So,
and I'd like to say that alters depending on the body of water. That might be a generalization.
Of course. And I think that's what George is saying. Average fecundity, so it's going to vary. But I think though that if we take that average value and we approximate that for the fish we're seeing, we don't want to say, it'd be nice to say, well, that Quinte fish has more eggs than that fish from the Grand or that fish from Nipissing. Who cares? I think saying, okay, so per kilogram or per pound, this is our value, and we start assigning that, and we start that tracker, right? We start keeping that track. I think that's pretty cool. So George, thanks for that information. I think we're going to use that for our while we kill some time this winter. So,
amen.
Sounds awesome.
As I said, right now, based on rough estimates, approximation of the size of fish, because we don't necessarily know the size of fish. One in particular, I nailed it. I forget who it was. I think it may have been was it Will Curtis? I'm not sure who it was, but somebody Jackson Price. I actually guessed the right size of the fish. So you know what? Still got it. No, I'm kidding. But needless to say,
let's remember that 50,000 eggs per kilogram. We'll remember that number. We're gonna work around that estimate going forward. So.
Amen. Right on, Jake. Well, thanks so much for your time, buddy. We really appreciate you, dude.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, baby.
All right.
Peace. All right. Well, that is the end of our show. But before we go, in case you can't meet us at Hot Bucks Hucks when we have our meet and greet out on the hard water, if in fact we are able to put it together, there are some other venues that we're going to be at. Of course, in August, Horwood Lake Lodge is going to be hosting our 7th annual CFN retreat. Love to see you there. It's from the 10th to the 16th. Please, by all means, reach out to Warren and Doris. Get your butt booked in a bed. We'd love to see you there. And, of course, the other meet and greet we're going to have, and it is a Monster Monday. Kevin hauled in a beautiful muskie 2 years ago at Camp McIntosh. And, of course, we're going to be there late in September, the 24th to the 28th. Those dates might seem a little odd to you. Yes, we are extending our time. Our anglers and those who visited last year asked us to extend the stay. So we have done so with the help of Camp McIntosh. So again, get a hold of Andre and Tracy. They would love to hear from you. And as I said, get your butt booked in a bed. Last but not least, I did want to mention something that is going to be happening also just at the beginning of September. It is the North Channel Walleye Open with the help of Nick Huxon, Danny Bacon, myself, and a host of others, we are going to be hosting the first ever North Channel Walleye Open on the town of Spanish. There is a whole bunch of prizes available. It is going to be a celebration of fishing, not just a tournament. There's lots of places for RVs, campsites. So if you just want to come up and be a spectator, we'd love to see you there. Again, September 19th to 20th. It's the weekend just before our OFC Nation retreat down at Camp McIntosh. And a big shout out to our sponsors already, Shimano. It's a pre-fish tournament, which is unique in itself. And join us on Wednesdays where we're going to be discussing this in greater detail. But these are 3 sponsors that have stepped up in a huge way already to get this thing going. And of course, without them, we just wouldn't be able to do it. So as it is right now, we are going to put the limit. We're hoping that we get 80 boats, but we are putting a limit at 90 because it sounds like it's going to be pretty popular, and a lot of folks are going to want to fish it. It is an incredible fishery down there, so I can totally understand why. What I saw in the 3 hours I was out with Danny, oh my Lord. If you love walleye fish, or any kind of fishing for that matter, head over to the Spanish area. Hands down, I would say it is equal to that of any great fishery that is spoken about here on this show or in other corridors and avenues within our industry. It is a remarkable fishery, and I would love to be able to take all of you there. But you have that opportunity, as I said. So you see us up there during the tournament, and you'll understand what I mean. In the meantime, enjoy your week, folks. I'm so glad that I got through it and didn't get a single page. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks so much for the support. Stay tuned because we do have some more announcements, especially due to it being our 10th anniversary. We have something to celebrate in a huge way. So stay tuned to that. In the meantime, Dave, take us away. Have yourselves a great week. Love you all. Peace.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights. The party's over. They say that all good things must end.